Mark Carney and Donald Trump shared pointed remarks publicly last week, starting with the Prime Minister's speech in Davos.
Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. Great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons. Tariffs as leverage, financial infrastructure as coercion, supply chains as vulnerabilities to be exploited. You cannot live within the lie of mutual benefit through integration when integration becomes the source of your subordination. The multilateral institutions on which the middle powers have relied, the WTO, the UN, the COP, the architecture, the very architecture of collective problem solving are under threat. And as a result, many countries are drawing the same conclusions, that they must develop greater strategic autonomy in energy, food, critical minerals, in finance and supply chains. When the rules no longer protect you, you must protect yourself. Now, Canada was amongst the first to hear the wake-up call, leading us to fundamentally shift our strategic posture. Canadians know that our old, comfortable assumptions that our geography and alliance memberships automatically conferred prosperity and security, that assumption is no longer valid. And we are no longer just relying on the strength of our values, but also the value of our strength.
It received a very rare standing ovation, with praise not only in Davos, but around the world.
It was a remarkable speech by a Canadian Prime Minister.
A watershed moment in global diplomacy.
Going back to the Prime Minister of Canada, extraordinary speech that he made at Davos this morning, talking about this rupture with the United States of America. Remember, he too has been threatened by President Trump with invasion. He keeps joking about Canada becoming the 51st state. They run military exercises in Canada just in case the United States comes in.
One day later, President Trump did figuratively come after Canada, targeting the Prime Minister directly at Davos.
Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not. I watched your Prime Minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. But they should be grateful to us. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements.
Canada doesn't live because of the United States. Canada thrives because we are Canadian.
That night, Trump posted this, withdrawing Carney's invitation to the president's newly gathered Board of Peace. And we're very pleased to be joined by the U.S. national editor of the Financial Times. Ed Luce joins us now. Mr. Luce, thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be with you, Ben.
All right, well, you're based in Washington. What has been your reaction to Prime Minister Mark Carney's speech in Davos?
I thought it was an extraordinary speech, one for the ages, really, because Carney was the first Western leader really to stand up and state very plainly that this isn't some brief aberration or transition. This is a rupture with the order that we've known for 80 years, and that each of us individually, whether it be Canada or Britain or Australia, whoever it might be, is very weak in terms of dealing with the United States. But as middle powers acting together, then we can match up with America's clout under Trump. And that was an extraordinary brazen statement, I thought, very skillfully delivered by Mark Carney, eliciting a standing ovation, which has only happened twice before in Davos, as you know, with Nelson Mandela and Volodymyr Zelenskyy. So it was one for the ages.
But these things don't happen in a vacuum, and there are knock-on effects. What do you make about the back and forth between the two gentlemen afterwards? Mark Carney responding to Donald Trump, Trump responding to Mark Carney, and then Mark Carney's invitation to join the Board of Peace rescinded.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I guess a sort of classic instance of Trump showing peak. He was clearly overshadowed in a way by Mark Carney's speech, or at least outmatched by the speech. Trump's speech did not elicit a standing ovation. It was a sort of ripple of customary applause, but nothing more. And so I think Trump felt stung by this to the extent that he withdrew the invitation to Canada to join to Prime Minister Mark Carney to join the Board of Peace. So it was a sort of tale of split screens, Davos, in which one of the screens was Canada's leader.
And in parallel to this dynamic, we saw play out in real time a ratcheting down of the tensions on Greenland. What have you made of that?
Well, it's very interesting because before President Trump went to Davos, he held a press conference on Tuesday of last week in which he reiterated his desire to take Greenland by any means necessary, implicitly including force. And in fact, he had stated directly on several previous occasions that force was an option. And the markets tanked. About $1 trillion worth of value was wiped off US stocks. Bond yields, meaning the cost of borrowing, went up. Then on Wednesday, when Trump ruled out in that long and pretty rambling speech that he gave in Davos, when he ruled out the use of force against Greenland, to take Greenland, and then climbed down from the punitive tariffs he'd imposed on NATO allies of Denmark, the markets recovered almost all of what they'd lost the previous day. So that phrase, actually coined by a colleague of mine, Taco, Trump always chickens out, was borne out by that rapid market swing following Trump's climb down.
Ed Luce, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.